Hey everybody, welcome to Life Behind the Cover. I'm Taylor, and today I'm talking about the things I learned while writing my first novel, and as such, the tips for you to write your first novel. I will say that this is from the perspective of an outliner. I like to outline. I don't think that I outline quite as much as some people do, but I do outline, and I know kind of where all the beats have to be in my story. Don't get me wrong, there's some, I think in every story, no matter if you've outlined or not, there's always some like, oh, I think we need to go this way for a little bit, and then we come back to the outline, which I did do. Also, you'll notice that I don't have any makeup on the bottom of my eyes, and that is because I'm sick and my eyes are watering, and I didn't want anything to get ruined. And honestly, I probably shouldn't have tried today, but I had the day off, and so it was the day to try. Also, I know my makeup looks crazy. I did go for like a Ravenclaw look, or it's supposed to be like copper and blue, but I don't know if we necessarily hit that home. I did my best. So the first thing I learned, and my first tip for you, is that writing is a skill that you can learn. You might not be a wonderful writer. That has no impact on your ideas or on your story in your head, but it does have an impact on like how you get it down, right? And I think we find this with a lot of new writers. I'm not new, but I haven't completed many novels, so I don't have the experience that a lot of people have, where I think it is a certain way in my head, and then I see what I've written and I realize I'm not getting those things across. And that's not because my idea is bad, it's because I'm not yet super trained in writing. And the only way to get there is to practice. I think that we think of writing like an artistic thing where it should just like flow out of you, but I think that writing, like everything else, is a skill and you can learn it. It's okay to not be great at first, and we need to give ourselves a little bit of room there to let ourselves improve and not get down on ourselves and just say, you know, if I sat down to the piano today, my first try at something would not be good, but I can get better. It's not a mark on who I am as a person. I need to learn that skill. And we don't need to think of writing as anything different than that. I also think to a certain extent, maybe this is like a bonus tip, that I love to watch writing videos and people talk about writing, and I think it helps. But you wouldn't tell a soccer player to just watch soccer videos and then go to an important game. You need to also practice. And that brings us to our next tip, which is you just have to write it. I think everybody hates this, myself included, because this is not a tip that is helpful. When you're like, how do I finish? And people are like, just write it. You're like, okay, well, that didn't help me at all. But the fact of the matter is, it's what you need to do. I think what happens, and this is what happened for me, my idea lived in my mind for years. And I would start and stop and start and stop only when I was inspired. And I only got to like a third of the way through the book before I said, okay, I need to sit down and really do this. And then, you know, I did that for a couple of weeks, and then I fell off with that because, you know, we have to get into this pattern of writing. But then I sat down for NaNoWriMo and I got myself a schedule, and I sat down and I just wrote it, and that's how I finished it. It's not perfect, but, you know, I finished it. Ideas, research, world building, you know, writing communities, those things are all great for you and your growth as a writer, but it's not writing, and those things aren't going to write your book. You still have to just tell yourself that you have to sit down and do it. After I finished, I realized that I understand outlining and story flow way better now. When I outlined and had never written something before, I had full chapters for things that took maybe 2 pages that I've added to other chapters, or I had chapters full of things, multiple things that needed like a wide array of chapters. So just know that your outline won't be perfect, and that, again, like this is a skill thing. As you write stories, you're going to learn more about how to outline stories. It's not saying that you can't outline them, but I think I understand story better now, when I've seen how things play out and how long those things take to play out. And I think as I'm going through my next part of editing, I'm getting to say, oh, this part's going to take like a long time. And I know that ahead of time, and I know kind of how much work is going to need to go into it. I also really rushed the ending of mine. I think that this had something to do with me wanting to be done with the story. Not done with it, but wanted to complete it because I was really excited. And so I would say take your time with your endings. Make sure that they're exactly what you need them to be because they're super important. So yeah, in general, I think you're going to get better with everything the more you do. I mean, is that even a tip? This is a tip I want to say it's like kind of a quick tip, and it's only for some of us. I realize that every person who writes has a different style and a different way in which they write, and that works for them, and I think that that's great. If you found a way that you can write the whole thing, make your way through things, great. I'm happy for you. However, for those people who are still trying to figure out how to do that thing, for the people who are still trying to figure out how to do those things, I think that outlining is a suggestion I would give to you. I started, I think like everybody, like a pantser. I didn't, I'd never heard of outliners or pantsers before, and I think when I started, I wasn't involved in the writing community, and so I had an idea and I just started writing it, and I think that's where most of us started. When I tried an outline, I liked it because number one, I knew what needed to happen, and I knew that I'd already set up all these things that would make my story connect without having even written them, but also because I could never make the excuse that I didn't know what came next because I had everything that came next. I also think you can make sure that you have a through line in your story, that you're getting through all the things you need to before you even write it. So that's my small tip, is to try outlining even a couple chapters maybe, or try it for a new book and see if you like it. If you don't, by all means, don't use it. I think both methods are very valid. I'm just saying you might be an outliner and not know, and I think it's always a great idea to just test it out. Also, outlining doesn't mean you absolutely have to stay to what you wrote down in your outline. As you are writing, you're free to make changes. You're not, I think a lot of people think that you have to be stringent to exactly what you did. But there's tons of scenes that I never outlined that are in my book and are now important scenes where I realize, oh, you know what? These people need to connect on some level. Let's give them a little something that I hadn't done when I outlined. I don't know if this will get better as I learn more and I thus outline the book in ways that will improve those things, but I don't think I will ever not let myself go in a direction I think would be important for the story. So just know that, you're not held down to anything. This is your work. Do what you want. Going back and editing your book while it is still unfinished and you're in progress of writing it is almost always a bad idea. I did this a lot, so I know, because I would be stuck at a certain part and I would go, I'm just going to go back and edit this part because I need some editing for this. Don't do it. The problem is this is going to be a cycle that you can just do for forever and not get very far into your book. I know because I did it for a very long time. Here's how I stopped myself from doing that. I got out a list, it's on my phone, and every time I thought of something that needs to be changed or added anywhere past where I was, I wrote it down. This meant that I wouldn't forget any of the things that I wanted to edit, but I could also just keep moving forward. It's going to help you progress through your story. It's also going to help you on your second draft, where now you have a list of things that you already know will need changing. Make it a rule, never go back, and just keep yourself going forward and keep that list. That's what's going to help you stop doing this. I know that it's difficult when we want to go back and edit and we know something is wrong. Your first draft isn't supposed to be perfect. Just get it done, write down those things you want to change, and keep moving forward. Sometimes when I'm reading through what I've written, I look at it and I go, I'm trash, and why did I think I could ever write a book? And I think everybody goes through that at one point in time if you're a writer. There's a couple things you need to remember. Number one, I've already said this, your first draft isn't supposed to be perfect. Number two, as you write more, you get better. You have to remember that. I've known this because as I'm reading through and creating my second draft, I'm realizing the beginning is worse than where I'm at now because I've gotten better as a writer as I go, and I can see that. It's okay to get overwhelmed. It's okay to get discouraged. Just don't tell yourself that you can't do it, because you can. Just remember that your favorite author not only had these feelings too, but your favorite book of theirs has gone through many revisions. You are not reading their first draft, right? We compare ourselves to some of our favorite books when in reality, these books have had 3 edits and then they've gone to the agent and maybe they had an edit there and maybe they've had a couple of edits with their editor, trust me, your first draft does not have to compare to these at all. So stop comparing your books. I would say the only healthy comparing is comparing to yourself in an improvement way. So it's just like I said earlier, I am better now than I was then, and I can see that. That's the only comparing that you need to be doing. So like I said, this is normal. This is a part of, I think, every writer's journey, and you can do it. You are a good writer. You have great ideas, and you can use those and push past those doubts to write your book. Because if you let those doubts bog you down, you're never going to be able to finish. Don't compare, just do. My last tip is maybe one of the most important, which is set goals. I think we've definitely talked about this already, where I said that just writing when you're inspired doesn't really work. And setting goals was the thing for me that got me through it. For me, I did it during NaNoWriMo, which you could do it too. As of the day this is going up, it's Camp Nano, baby. Go to Camp Nano. You know, give yourself that however many words you want and do it. But you can do this outside of NaNoWriMo too. There's a couple different goals you can set for yourself, and I think you're going to have to figure out what works for you. I do things like words per day when I'm writing. Right now I'm doing a chapter per day now that I'm editing and second drafting. You could also do things like a certain amount of hours a day. If you don't want to push yourself beyond, you could say, okay, you know what? I have 30 minutes every day and I can do that. Or I want it to be done by April, 17th, whatever. Just set a goal for yourself and make sure you keep it, because in that way, now you can plan out how everything's going to go down, when you're going to be able to do this, when you're going to be able to do that. And you can see as you get closer to the goal, as you get closer to finishing. And I love that feeling. It's very exciting. And it makes sure that you're turning it into a priority. If you work like I do, maybe you don't have as much time if somebody is being a full-time writer, but it doesn't mean you can't write every day or that you can't spend some time working on your novel. All these tips can work for you. You just have to make them work for you. If a harsh deadline doesn't sound fun, where you have to be complete by a certain time, you can do a 30-minute a day goal. Okay, so those are my tips for first-time writers. I hope they help you. I know that they would have helped me. These are tips that I would have wanted to see while I was writing my first draft, and I think that they're kind of helpful for anybody in any stage, because sometimes you just need somebody to say, no, this is what you need to do. And I think that you can use them as tools, and tools are used to work however you want them to work, right? It doesn't have to be, again, nothing has to be the same way for everybody. Take these tips and put them in, whatever, your writer's toolkit. That sounds awful. Forget it. Take these tips and use them as tools to help you, and use them in ways that work for you. Every writer is different. Every person is different, and we all have a different way we go about writing. But each of these things should be useful to you in some way. So good luck. Go write if you haven't written already. Again, my name is Taylor. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and hit a like if you like this. Thanks so much.